Welcome back, everyone, to the Floridian Guy. We greatly apologize for a long delay, but our hosting company had serious problems with Windows 7 and we had to shut it down until we could find another hosting company, which we did. We are renaming our YouTube channel to Our Time Will Come for a good reason. It has nothing to do with being racist, as some of you might think. Please listen to the video and watch pictures close, because I am trying to relay a message to everyone, especially independents. Those of you who don't see the message, it is that people in this country might never see our current or past war criminals put to trial by us. As each day passes, it becomes harder and harder to imagine it ever happening. Yet some of you are right that there will be some sort of revolution, but it will accomplish little of nothing. If any of us want to have a front row seat to see the war criminals tried, convicted, sentenced, you will need to get your hearts good with God, because the last chapter is going to be written from heaven. Our nation, just like many nations before us, has exalted man above God. We no longer ask God to fix our problems. We ask the government or take upon ourselves to fix them. We, like the Amorites, Hebrews, and even Romans, are like Sodom and Gomorrah. The churches in this nation let adultery, divorce, homosexuals, transsexuals, and other forms of sin inside God's house. Many built great sanctuaries to exalt themselves and make money more important than God. Many so-called preachers preach that there are other ways to get into heaven besides believing in Jesus Christ. Many churches let rock and roll infest their sanctuaries. As a nation, Obama has proclaimed that we are no longer a Christian nation. Our nation elected 3 presidents so far, one that openly endorses gay marriage, Bill Clinton, and 2, Bush and Obama, that openly say Jesus is not the only way into heaven. Obama has been caught openly blaspheming the Bible. Our country, not God, elected those presidents. Our nation has over 10% proclaiming to be openly gay in surveys, which is probably an understatement. An example of how we worship exalt what man does over God is American Idol. Our nation thinks that we can solve the current oil spill problem, but there is only one that can, and that is God. These, among many more reasons, are why God is rendering his judgment on the United States. For the wicked in this nation have filled their cups full, and their sins have reached unto heaven. This is the reason things are getting worse, not better. That leads me to why BP Transocean Gulf oil spill is the start of God's judgment on the United States. To sum it up for liberals in the mass sheeple, the oil spill will not stop for 30 years, regardless of what Obama or BP tries. The pressure at the wellhead has not decreased, but is getting stronger. Even though the hole is getting bigger, it should be the other way around, like putting a nozzle on your water hose. Smaller hole, more pressure; larger hole, less pressure. That's not happening. For you see, underneath that well is a methane gas bubble ready to explode. The pressure is coming out of the pipe, while when it exploded were 70 to 100,000 psi, and this pressure has not decreased but increased. If you were to drop a tactical nuke down the hole first, you would have to deal with the 1 mile of ocean depth and the pressures at that level, along with sub-zero temperatures. Secondly, you would have to deal with a methane bubble that is highly volatile. That's why BP could not cap the well for very long, because the pressures keep increasing. If you look at what is coming out of BP's wellhead, it is red, sweet crude and green methane gas. The methane bubble is slowly bleeding off, but it will take 30 years to do so. The ensuing explosion caused by the tactical nuke igniting the methane would cause a 700-foot tidal wave that could potentially submerge Florida in oily water. A relief well will just further crack the thin, fragile seafloor in that area, causing an even worse explosion. That's one problem. The other problem is that with the seafloor being so fragile, we might have already done too much damage when BP did the top fill, further cracking the fragile seafloor. Take a look at one of the robot photos and you will see what I'm talking about. There is a methane oil and oil spewing from the cracks around the well that BP won't acknowledge has already happened. If you do any amount of investigative journalism, and I'm talking to you, left-wing news media, you will see that BP has drilled is at the end of a fault line. The fault line goes all the way up the Mississippi River into the Great Lakes. This fault line is called the New Madrid Fault. A fracture at one end of the Gulf could potentially cause the whole fault line to split in half, which could cause millions of poisonous chemicals, VOCs, to erupt from the fault. Think about that, left-wing media, and start reporting on this. God has given our nation many prophets to warn us about these things. but no one listened or believed what they said, except for a very few of us that actually do believe in God's word. And know this is the beginning of the end. For confrontation of this being our judgment, go to Revelation 8:8-9. I am using the 1611 King James Bible. Revelation 8:8-9. And the second angel sounded, as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures that were in the sea had life, died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. The word blood brings to mind red, and you see the oil coming out of the and floating on the ocean surface is red. As it were a great mountain burning is described the oil rig explosion as seen from heaven. There were no other way for John the Baptist to describe such a sight as an oil well did not exist in his time. Also note that the sea may not include all the seas, as if you just include the Gulf of Mexico, then it could be the sea. More than a third of the Gulf of Mexico is covered in oil right now. Obviously, with the oil plus the deadly correxant, 9,500, a third of those creatures living in it will die. That's not out of the realm of possibility at this point. With an ensuing oil-a-cane or tsunami, a third of the vessels of the Gulf could be destroyed. Temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico are already 7 degrees above 1995 levels, and areas around the wellhead in Louisiana and Mississippi are encountering dangerous VOC levels in methane and benzene. Everyone here should seriously take Dimitri Duduman, A. Allen, Man from Modesto, and other prophets' warnings seriously at this point. Here's a picture of A. Allen's vision from God. Look at the cities he shows the white gas effects. They follow the fault lines perfectly. Coincidence? I think not. It is also not coincidence that A. Allen's statue of Liberty in the Gulf of Mexico, or that the sword, the destruction, which signifies 9 wars that already are in progress: Afghan, Iraq, Yemen, Middle East, Korean, radical communism versus U.S. Constitution, international globalists versus current world financial system, U.S. versus Iran, Iran, China versus Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, India, China versus Taiwan. These wars are already ongoing on schedule to happen within less than 120 days. These are wars that we don't want but are being forced upon us. The skeleton is the fault lines of America, and the white vapors are VOCs escaping from the fault lines. What A. Allen was not to know was that in 1945 there were no oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico.